Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Masood Hamada, and today we're going to be doing another incredible Azure lab here today. So today's video is going to be about passwordless credentials for access and escalation. This is going to be a super fun lab because yet again, we're starting with some OSINT and we're going to have to break into the environment. We don't start with an assumed breach. So let's get right into it. Now we start off with this megabigtech.com, clearly just to state that, this is the company's domain. Let's see what you can find. And the first thing that I want to showcase, rather the first thing that we need to do, is confirm that this is an Azure environment or that this company is utilizing Azure. Now, if it's utilizing Azure, then that means we're going to be able to look up the tenant ID. And go over to this API over here, and it's basically a free tenant ID lookup. All right, so as you can see, megabigtech is in fact using Azure. I know that it was kind of obvious because it's an Azure lab. However, this is a huge part of enumeration when you're first studying up your company, getting to situational awareness about your company and about your target. This is something that is crucial. So let's go ahead and grab this tenant ID and save it. So with that being said, there's a lot more that we can do. Now, one of the most favorite things for me, especially if we're dealing with a cloud environment, is to do a little bit of a service discovery, asset discovery, whatever you want to call it. Basically, we want to fuzz for all the publicly accessible resources that are available on our target. So how we do that is through multiple different ways. I'm going to utilize CloudEnum. CloudEnum is one of my favorite tools. And go over to my CloudEnum notes. And by the way, if you would like my notes or you want to reach out or talk about cloud security, please don't hesitate to contact me in the Pwn Labs Discord server. So CloudEnum is fantastic. It literally just you specify the company and you disable the clouds that you're not looking for. So I'm disabled AWS and I'm disabled GCP. And then it takes that company, makes variations of the name, and fuzzes every single service endpoint in order to find if there are any publicly accessible resources on any of the services of Azure, for example. Let me go ahead and show you the GitHub so you know where to get it. Search CloudEnum GitHub. And it's the first one that pops up here. And right here you can see the about is multi-cloud OSINT tool. And in fact, indeed, it's a very good one. So I highly recommend that you try it out at least. Okay, so as you can see, we found one storage account. And look at here what we found. We found a blob storage account. And this container actually has 2 publicly accessible blobs. Look at that. Application IDs.csv and sppfx.csv. sp.pfx. So let's go ahead and download these. I'm going to stop this scan. Feel free to run it fully if you wish to. There are in fact more things to be found. But for the scope of this lab, we're going to take a look at these 2 files over here. So I'm going to copy this, simply place it into my browser. and thus we have downloaded it. I'm going to do the same for the other file. And now we download the other. Now we have downloaded both files. So let me move them into this directory just to keep things organized. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what's inside them. The application IDs looks like it just holds some application IDs for the different applications that are on the environment. So pretty valuable information, I'd say. Possibly find a use to it in the future. And now we have this PFX file. Now, if you try to cat this, let's actually see what kind of file it is. Data. So if you try to cat this, it'll actually show data which is not readable. And you're probably wondering, then how could you enumerate this to find information about it? And you can do so in two different ways. Now I'm going to showcase how you can do that on Linux and how you can do that on PowerShell. So if we use OpenSSL, we can actually get some info about it. Placing a blank password, we can actually get like this right here, the friendly name. And yeah, we can get some a bit of information, I guess not too useful. However, let me showcase what you would get on PowerShell. By going to the PowerShell and I use this get PFX certificate command, we can actually get the actual name of the application, which is right here, HR portal. And yeah, so this is kind of a very key point or key identification, because we actually need to know what application it is if we want to use this PFX. Now, you're probably thinking, this PFX isn't in any way useful to us. We know that certificates can be used to access resources. That's one of the main authentication schemas of the resources on Azure. So you can get into resources by credentials, by keys, and by certificates. So can we use this to get in? Well, if you saw in previously, we saw, let me exit this. We saw that this application IDs CSV has application IDs for the applications. And guess what? Our application that we just have the certificate for is right here. HR portal. And this is the app ID. Let's go ahead and grab that, save it to its own file. And with the application ID and the key, which we'll get the .pem right now, we might be able to actually sign in to this service principal, the service principal of the application. So let's go ahead and get the PEM file through this command right here. And as you can see, we just made the PEM file. Look at this. We can literally sign in now. Let's go ahead and sign in using this AZ login command. And as you can see here, we needed the username to be the app ID. That's why we saved the app ID into a file. And we also needed the tenant ID, which we got for free online. So yeah, the last thing we need is the actual .pem file specified by the certificate flag. Let's go ahead and log in here. Amazing. So we have just logged in. See what resources we can have access to. All right, so we basically have access to one resource, which is this website. And yeah, let's see what permissions we have over this website. Save the subscription ID. Save the resource ID. And last command is to get the actual permissions here. All right, so over the website, over this web application, we have these action permissions. We have read and a bunch of insights and basically a bunch of actions on the actions plane, but no permissions on the data actions plane. Now, that being said, we can still do a lot. Now, if you're not familiar, the data actions plane is what allows us to extract the actual internals of the resource. However, there are still many ways for us to do so just through the actions plane. And let's see how we can do that right now. Firstly, let's go ahead and enumerate the website. By the way, if you're not connected to the VPN, please do so. Otherwise, you won't be able to access this resource. You can connect to it by downloading this VPN file right here and then transferring it over to your VM and then starting it with sudo open VPN and then specifying the VPN file. So here we have the host name. Let's go check it out. Your app, your web app is running and waiting for your content. Okay. So that's weird that there's no index.html or anything. Not found. File not found. However, there's something disclosed within this is that we're actually on the Linux. So there's at least that. But let's not guess too much here. Let's actually just fuzz for potential pages. So I can do that here on in my burp suite. Take this bad boy over to intruder. I want to get a small one. This one will do. Let's launch this sniper attack. So, by the way, if you did not want to use Burp Suite, which is understandable, it can be quite slow on the community edition. We can actually also just use FUF. So I'll showcase how to use FUF here. So utilizing FUF here with the small directories.txt from seclists. So if you don't have seclists, you just install it with sudo apt install seclists, and then specifying the host and specifying where to fuzz by the all caps fuzz. We can basically fuzz to find app data and portal. Let's go ahead and check out portal. And here we found portal as well. All right. So we have an actual website here. Maybe try some test parameters. Looks like the website is still in development. Let's see if maybe this one does any post request or any request. Okay, looks like the server is dysfunctional, or the website is just incomplete. All right, let's turn back our attention to the Azure CLI over here. And I want to enumerate a couple more things about this website. Now, if our application or our service principal that we are authenticated to has permissions, there are certain things that it can do to this web application. For example, look at this. We can get actual credentials if it's possible for uploading files to our website. You know, developers create new pages, they need to update pages, and they can do so through the FTP protocol. So let's see if the FTP protocol has any credentials or is set up. Look at that. So FTP is turned on and this is allowed. We can actually get the credentials for this FTP transfer right here in plain text through AZCLI. That's crazy. So let's go ahead and take this. All right. So with that, we can actually look to upload a file just like a developer would, except let's upload a reverse shell, or a web shell rather. I'm going to make this shell.php file. And then I'll explain this command as to how to transfer it. We're going to use curl with the -t flag, and basically with the --SSL flag and the entire FTPS host is specified. And within that, we're going to make sure that we set the directory all the way to the portal, because we know that the portal is where we are, accessing files. So possibly do not have the permissions. We possibly don't even have the permissions to access files from the web root. So rather be safe and put our shell in the portal directory. And from here, we can specify the user, which was right here, username. And then it's going to ask us for this password. All right, that's uploaded. Let's see if it's there. Look at that. We literally have a web shell running, and thus we have remote code execution on this site. That's crazy, on the server for the site. All right, so from here we can do multiple things. Obviously, you can start enumerating the host, seeing what other files are available on this directory, start enumerating the web application, and look at that. There's a test.txt from some other students or players, token.json, and that's pretty cool. So anyways, let's see, what do we want to do on this website? Well, we can actually see if in the environment variables, if the actual MSI, if the actual endpoint is accessible. So we can go to look at here. The MSI endpoint is set and thus is probably accessible. And here's the MSI secret. And if you're not familiar, this is the metadata endpoint, just like GCP, just like AWS, where we can actually extract the token for the service, for the management identity of this website. And so that means we gain access to another service principal. Let's go ahead and get those tokens. Okay, we now have the ARM token for this. Let's go ahead and grab that. Put it in, let's see, let's put it in token.txt. And before moving forward, let's actually go back to the environment variables. Oh, file not found. We have to re-upload our file. By the way, this your web shell is going to be deleted every 30 minutes. So, there's a 30 minutes timer, and every 30 minutes, all of the web shells are deleted. So you have to re-upload them. Now, the one thing that I want to get from the environment variables is actually the application ID. We grab this application ID because we need it if we're going to sign into this, if we're going to utilize this, this service principal. All right. So with this token, let's go ahead and enumerate the actual access that the service principal has. So let's go ahead and see what resources it has. Let's see what the resources that it has access to. Oh, right, we need the subscription. So let's go ahead and get the subscription ID as well. Actually, we can just get it from the resource. So here's the subscription ID. And let's use that command again. Here we found the resources that we have access to. Now, unfortunately, this right here, this storage, this is the publicly accessible storage where we got the certificate from. So we've already plundered this. And this is the website that we have just compromised. So the resources are not really giving us too much to work with here. Instead, what we're going to do is let's go ahead and get another token, except this time we're going to get the graph token. So I'm going to save the graph token into its own file. And now we can actually enumerate the graph in multiple ways. Like, for example, we can use Graph Runner. Check it out. And put the token into Graph Runner and start enumerating the users. Look at that, all the users. You can spray all these guys. You can get the groups. Now you won't be able to get any M365 information like the emails and things like that because this is a service principal. It does not have any Teams messages and things like that. But yeah, some other things that we can actually enumerate in the Graph API is the administrative units. Now, a very underlooked area of the Graph API, especially since the fact that you can't even enumerate this with AZ-CLI, and natively you actually have to use the REST method in order to enumerate it with AZ-CLI. You can't even see it in the Bloodhound scans using Azure Hound. It's not even supported. So the administrative units are basically containers where roles can apply. And when these roles apply, you can have things like password resetting. You can have things that make the lives of the IT easier and the help desk easier, and things like that. You can have a container. You can have an administrative unit for each specific department, and then assign roles and assign permissions that way. Basically, you're capable of separating and segregating your organization into administrative units. So let's go ahead and enumerate administrative units. So I'm going to list all the administrative units with this command. And look here at this administrative unit, for example, HR Unit 2. This allows the HR team to manage user properties. Let's actually get some more info about this one. We can get the members that are inside it. As you can see here, Celine Diaz is inside it. We can actually get the scoped members, and these are the scoped members. Now, luckily for us, as you can see here in the display name, the scoped member is the literal service principal that we just compromised. Now, if you're concerned, you're like, well, what if there are a billion administrative units, and how am I supposed to find the one where my service principal is assigned the role? Well, in that case, where you're dealing with a large environment, I would highly suggest for you to automate, looping through each administrative unit and then checking within your script, checking the actual member user scoped users, scoped members, and then cross-checking that with the service principal that you own or the user that you own. And that way you can look very quickly to find what you're capable of doing with your compromised account. So with that being said, if you're not familiar with how administrative units work, you have the scoped member, which is us, and then you have the actual members, which is Celine Diaz. Now, the scoped members, you can remember this by the word scope, has the scope of the roles that are assigned to the administrative unit. So basically what that means is scoped role member has the role permissions over, has the ability to affect the members or the directory objects in the administrative unit. So we have permissions over Celine Diaz. Now, depending on what these permissions are, we could possibly move laterally to Celine. So how we're going to figure that out is through this format. This role ID is the reference for the role that we have, and that role is giving us the permissions over Celine Diaz. So if we can resolve this role ID, we can see what role we have over Celine Diaz. So let's go ahead and resolve this one right here. We're going to resolve it with this command. And now check this out. This role is called Password Administrator, and it says we can reset the passwords for non-administrators and password administrators. So basically, we have the ability to reset passwords of the members within the administrative unit. Now remember, the scope is only the administrative unit. It's not everybody in the Graph API. These roles only apply within the administrative unit. So let's go ahead and reset the password of Celine Diaz. All right, now let's go ahead and sign in. All right, we have successfully moved laterally. So congratulations, everybody. Another principal down. And let's go ahead and enumerate the resources. Okay, we have a key vault here. So let's go ahead and access this key vault. Look at that Silicon Valley Bank pin. All those times that you're having your money worries, those days are gone, because we just got a bank pin and we just got this juicy flag. So let's go ahead and see if this is the flag for the lab, hand it in and get our points. Oh, look at that. This would be sweet. All right, let's put this in and see if we can get us some CSRF mismatch. All right, let's try again. Congratulations. Successfully, we have completed this lab. If you were following along, I truly hope you enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, please consider leaving a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment, telling me how you liked it or what you would like to see in the future. Again, if you want to reach out to me, my name is Masood Hamada. We can always chat on the Discord server for Pwn Labs, talk about cloud security, or talk about the labs, anything of that nature. And yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for watching and see you later.